I think that the figures speak for themselves. We've arranged over 200 interviews, and we've been able to successfully help almost 150 people who were previously unemployed into jobs in the respective industries in which they had expressed an interest. So I think that the system that we've implemented, which is far closer collaboration with contractors that work for the government, has proved, I think, extremely useful and has borne a lot of fruit.
You call it gainful employment, but are we talking real jobs? And by that I mean employment with job security.
Yes, these are what we were discussing before the interview, real jobs. In other words, these are private companies in the private sector that provide services. Some of those services they provide to the government. So, for example, I've mentioned a few industries: security, care, technicians, cleaning. So there are different sectors that are in private industry, but that they also, in addition, work for the government. And because we ask that those companies that provide services to the government assist us in finding opportunities for the registered unemployed, once they do the interview and they are successful, they are in a real job with a real contract.
Well, you obviously consider that this has been a success, so will it now be a rolling programme?
Well, we started this focused, concerted efforts in June, and I think the measure of the success of this system is that whereas initially we targeted specifically those companies that provide services to the government, we now have companies that do not provide services to the government calling the ministry and calling the employment service, and we are able to identify people for them who are eager to work in that kind of industry. And I think that really is a measure of success. I think an important point to make is that for some persons that are registered as unemployed, finding a job may be a quick job, a quick process, because they are suitable for the job. But then, of course, there are some persons who, because of the previous background, perhaps because they've been incarcerated or some other problem, it may take longer time and it's a longer process. But the good thing about this system is that even people who've had difficulties in the past in finding employment, we are finding employment for them. So it does away with what I thought was a very pernicious argument put forward before by the previous administration that some people were unemployable. Some people certainly present greater difficulties in finding employment, but somebody who is able to work and willing to work and is actively seeking employment, even if they do have a background which in the past has presented difficulties, we will certainly be able to help them to find employment.
Another thing that you mentioned in your statement is that unemployment figures are the best they've ever been. But just how realistic are these figures when you've got people on training schemes and employed under SNK on an annual contract and earning a minimum wage?
Well, I think the statistics reflect the reality on the ground, and I will explain why. There have always been trainees. And before, as you well know, trainees did not obtain a full wage. We came into government, we made sure that trainees obtained the full wage. The beauty, I think, and I'm not here to speak for Minister Bossano, but the beauty of this system, directed by my colleague Minister Bossano, is that the trainee is put in a company that is required by an employer for a month or 3, depending on the sector. Then that company has to take on that trainee or pay back to the government the money that the government has spent in training that person. The October 2014 employment survey showed that over 270 trainees, 270, which is a staggering statistic, found their way from the training companies of the government into real private sector jobs. And this is not a statistic that's prepared by the Employment Service or by the Department of Minister Bossano. This is prepared by the Statistics Office and is done by way of questionnaires sent out to the different employers. So I think that the statistics reflect, as I said, the reality on the ground. And of course, unemployment is defined as a person who is able to work, willing to take on any job that is offered to that person, and is actively seeking for employment.